Good morning. Welcome everyone to another live chat discussion here on the NextOppSocial channel. As always, I'm Richelle Wright Wilson and I'm joined by Juwan Buford. And today we're going to talk about branding and how to make your business memorable and all the ins and outs of what that looks like. So before we jump into everything, as always, if you're watching with us here, either live or on the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an interview, a live, or any of these incredible discussions we have here at NextOppSocial. So since we're talking about branding, let's clarify a little bit. Two words I want to kind of distinct. Brand, what is brand? What is a brand? And what is branding? So a brand is I kind of pulled these definitions. A feature or set of features that distinguishes one business from another. And a brand is typically comprised of a name, tagline, logo, or symbol, design, brand voice, and more. And it refers to the overall experience a customer undergoes when interacting with a business. Now, that's a brand. Now, branding is the process of researching, developing, and applying distinctive feature or set of features to your business that consumers can then begin to associate your brand with a set of products or services. So branding is what happens after you have the brand, right? But branding is oftentimes a deciding factor between your business and another. I think I was reading like it's like over 60% of the time branding is what is going to set aside or make the difference of what if someone chooses you or not. So that's what we're going to talk about today: how to make your business memorable, how to align your business as one that people decides to go with over and over again, and what that looks like in a practical how-to sense so you can start applying these practices right away.
Yeah, I mean, wow, some different directions we can go with this discussion, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking about two business owners that I had a conversation with earlier today, and already, right? And then
Like it's only 10 a.m., John.
yes, and you know what? I've had similar conversations with two others this week so far, and one of them started up a clothing company, right? And she was frustrated because she was able to get some sales from her family and friends. She was able to have a couple individuals when she leaned in support her, but beyond her tight network of people who love her and have her back, she hasn't been able to get any traction in the marketplace whatsoever, right? And if we're going to talk on a ground level, practically speaking, one of the questions I asked her, to be transparent, is, well, what makes her clothing any different than anyone else's? And when I go on Instagram, there are 1 million people selling clothing of some type, form, shape, or another. And some of them are modeling the clothing. Some of them are just taking pictures of them and blasting the world with them, which I always find immensely entertaining. But what's going to make your clothing brand different? And, she pressed pause for a moment. And I said, look, when I think about branding, right, on a macro level and try to take it to a micro level, I think about, companies like Gillette. Like, I remember those Gillette commercials that were being aired 2 years ago where they were telling basically family stories within them, right? I remember the Budweiser commercial that VaynerMedia did involving Dwayne Wade and how they told stories, right? I think about Mrs. Fields Cookies, right? I think about these brands, and I can go on and on and on. But the thing is, when you think about the brand, you think of a story. You think of some type of backdrop. It's the same thing with an Apple product, right? You can't talk about Apple without mentioning Steve Jobs. And if you really look at Apple's branding, Apple set out not to be a computer. It was not meant to be a tool. Apple, at the end of the day, was meant to be jewelry. That's what it is, right? That's when you walk into a coffee shop, whether someone has an iPhone or someone has an iPad, they will not cover up that Apple. Okay, they want it, it's clearly being displayed, right? And what are you doing to create a story? That was the question I asked her. If I'm gonna buy your clothing, well, I wouldn't buy it, but if one of my friends were gonna buy your clothing, these women clothing you're designing, what's the story behind it? Why did you start the company? What were you looking to accomplish? Without divulging too much of her trade secrets in the conversation we had, her ideal was to create a clothing company for women who attend church. But when you go to churches, oftentimes people wearing the same type of clothing, right? It's almost like a uniform, like going to college. Not
Yeah.
going to college, almost like going to high school and some colleges, right? It's literally uniformity across the table. And she says, look, I'm a free spirited person. I enjoy living and working and helping and serving in the community, in the church. And I feel like, what, God blessed me with this sense of expression. I want to create clothing for women who feel the exact same way. I said, now that's a story, right?
Mhm.
And I asked her, if I looked at your Instagram, if I looked at your Facebook, if I looked at any of the advertisements or posts that you're making, where's that story in it? Or are you just putting clothing out and hoping people buy it, right? And I mean, it can be as simple and rudimentary as that, right? Asking yourself, really, what is the story behind what you're doing? And quite frankly, what's the vision for your company or service or product 10 years from now? Because that will inform too how you talk about what you do. It'll inform how you promote what you do. It'll inform how you conduct and carry yourself, what operations you put on business level customer service. It'll determine all those different things. So, I'm just kind of think about this on a real practical level as I was prepping for this conversation. Like, what are some of the practical things that we would want, especially a new entrepreneur, to consider when we talk about this ideal of brand and then branding? Like, what does that all entail?
I think talking about vision too is really important in that long-term vision because if we think about some of these companies, especially the ones that you've mentioned that have longevity, it's not that um, their brand, the visual aspects of their brand or how they approach their branding has stayed the same forever, right? But at their core, all the changes that they've made within their brand have made sense and kept them consistent because their vision, their long-term vision has stayed the same. Right. So I think another very recent example that was in the news a lot, that I saw in the news a lot, and a lot of designers, like brand designers, really showcased was Burger King. To be honest, I don't know if you saw that. So I think they were a really good example of what re-strategizing or um, looking at your existing brand um, and conveying it a different way, but still holding true to that vision and values, right? How does your so what Burger King did was they visually changed their logo. They had new different pops, or where they have different pops of color, bolder fonts, and they actually reverted a lot of their design and their brand back to the way it was in like the 70s. And
Mm,
for this is because they said they wanted to signal a commitment to um, very recent changes to their taste, food quality, removal of artificial colors, flavors, and other preservatives, and showcasing environmental sustainability. So they changed their logo, their packaging, merchandise, menus, uniforms, all their digital assets. Their logo is probably the most noticeable as well because it became very minimalistic and simple. But the reason for that is because they said we want to convey real, simple, delicious food, right? But their vision, right? I think that especially when a company goes through a rebrand like this, and Burger King is a great example, right? Fast food is a great example of how they stray off their vision for, by just the way that life happens, right? If
mm,
they've been adding preservatives, if they've been doing things, they have not held true to their vision. But this brand redesign helps them come back to that, right? So I think talking about your long-term vision and really understanding what that is, right? Of can you is your why, is your reason for business sustainable for decades, right? Because it should be, right? That at your core, the why should not have to alter and change. How you
mm,
present that to the public may need to change and adjust, but that core reason should hold true. And I think that that's just so vitally important to talk about that too, and to emphasize that, because so many people think that that branding in a brand is like your logo, your colors, your fonts, and the visual part of a lot of the visual stuff that we see. But truthfully, that happens last. That has to happen last.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who you're talking to, if you don't know why you're talking to them and how you're going to speak to them, then nothing that you create is going to resonate properly when you put it out there.
Yes. Yeah. You know, that was like real apropos what you shared, right? In terms of having a long-term vision and the fact that, like you said before, the symbols, the whatever you digital artifacts you create, it doesn't matter if people can't identify it with something, right? Whether it be a feeling or an experience or a thought. You can have the most attractive content that's out there, but at the end of the day, once again, if it doesn't create resonance, you're gonna be dead in the water. You know, this is not the thing that people say. I hear this maxim all the time, right? If you build it, they'll come. No, that's not the way it works, right? And even on a simpler, more rudimentary level than we were discussing now, I mean, when you talk about branding, branding is the moment someone gets introduced to your service and product, branding begins,
Right.
right? How you introduce your service and product, how you talk about it, how people receive the information, from the time that they learn about what it is that you do to how those services or products are introduced to them is your branding. The follow-up, the conversations you have with individuals once they've acquired a product or service to find out whether or not they're a happy client or customer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the tools you have in place to continue to engage and to follow up with individuals, right? This is all part of your brand. Because in the beginning, you're not a Fortune 100, Fortune 500 company. The brand is you, right? Whether
Right.
you're opening up a coffee shop, whether you open up a soup kitchen, whether you're selling clothing, whether you're offering B2B services, graphic design, et cetera, et cetera. Initially, your brand is you, right? And these are some of the things you want to think critically about. It's not just the marketing that people see online posted somewhere on Facebook or Instagram, right? It's you. And how people feel about your company is going to have a lot to do with everything that transpires from the first time you make eye contact, shake someone's hand, from the first time, the type of email that you send out to someone if you're doing email marketing and campaigning. I mean, all these things are your branding. And, you know, you hit the nail on the head, Rochelle. Oftentimes people are looking at it on a macro, they're looking at it from up in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
when you can't forget to handle the fundamentals, right? We often talk about this on a regular basis. You know, client services is branding,
Right.
right? That is branding. And quite frankly, that's the most important branding in the beginning is your
Mm-hmm.
client services. I mean, I know of restaurants who don't necessarily serve the best food, but their client services is just so on 10. Their
I
client
think of
service,
like when I think of a company like that, I think of like Chick-fil-A, right? It's not necessarily that Chick-fil-A. I mean, people say it's the like there are people who swear by it, but I think people swear by it more because of how efficient and consistent and streamlined, and it's just it doesn't matter what state you're in, that's what happens,
yep.
right?
Yes, indeed. I mean, that says it all. Chick-fil-A, perfect example, right? It's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about them the other day. Anyway, but on the other hand, we know of restaurants that have smacking food. I mean, incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to camp out there at the table, but you're waiting there 20 minutes for you get a glass of water. You're
Yep.
waiting not 30 minutes, but an hour before the entree finally hits the table. You're not going back there again.
Yeah.
Like, people have to remember that that is a part of branding, and that's applicable in everything that we do, right? Um, you know, a question oftentimes asked business owners is, once someone acquires your product or service, what happens on the back end? What happens next? They've tendered their cash, right? And where is the follow-up? How are you going to engage them again? How are you going to let them know that you exist, right? How do you convert them from a one-off to someone who repeatedly says hello to you from time to time and patronize you, but more important, they bring your friends, right? That's when you know your branding's working. When you transition from having to spend money to acquire clients, the clients starting to come to you because of how you treated them, right? And because of that brand recognition, because you turn people from mere customers, which I kind of define as someone who just patronizes you one time, to a client who's someone who actually has a relationship with you. That's part of your branding. That's how you get traction in the marketplace, right? Once again, don't think that you're going to do what some of these celebrities do. They already have a brand, right? People already know who they are. They're going to attract attention just by their mere presence. But if you're not there yet, right? If you only have 1 follower on Facebook and 10 on Instagram, this is what branding looks like for you. And, as we were having this discussion, I just wanted to make sure we drive that point home. So I know 20 business owners will go out and they'll spend $1,500,
Mm-hmm.
on individuals to help them create symbols and create emblems and all this fun stuff. They'll go out and they'll pay money on getting things trademarked. They will. They'll pay a pretty penny to get this stuff set up. And then they're upset 6 months from now when the business hasn't grown beyond their 5 or 10 friends who supported them in the beginning.
Yeah, a really good brand. If you're looking for a brand designer, if you're looking for a designer to do that, a really good brand designer should have a process that they go through with you to explain every decision that they're making in terms of what assets they're creating for you, right? They should be able to break down why they've done this, why they've chosen this, why they suggest you move this way, why their strategy looks like this. Um, and truthfully, a good brand designer, though, is only going to do so well if your vision is clear, if you
Mm-hmm.
understand enough of your business. So, again, that's just such an important part that, you can find the best brand designer in the world, but if what you're doing really isn't clear, even to them, then it's not going to convey as much. But yeah, I agree that the branding doesn't stop of like, okay, here's all my why, here's who I'm attracting, here's all my visual assets, now we're done. No, because the experience that someone has is also then going to lead to, a good brand is going to have no issues getting referrals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Effective branding generally creates this impression about your company among customers, and people are, when they go into business with you, when they decide to do something with you, they've already have an expectation in their head because they know that your brand is worthwhile, right? They know they can depend on you, that you're a name or an entity or whatever that they can trust. I would argue that has a lot less to do with your freaking logo. I know plenty of companies that don't have much of a logo or anything in terms of like fancy design of any capacity. I mean, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, but word of mouth advertising is very powerful because of the system, processes, and brand strategy outside of all that people have developed. So if anything, you need a strong brand to help bring not just in new customers that don't know about you or whatnot, but bring in these customers that do, like, if you've, like, you were talking about your client who you'd spoken to earlier. If she's already engaged friends and family, that referral train should be hopping out now outside of her network without her really having to do a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But if her brand isn't strong, if there's not a clear vision behind any of that, they don't even know what to tell people.
That's right.
Right. So, and that alone, right? Even if you're still at this friends and family stage of your business and acquiring people that way, this branding needs to at least have some substance to it. Um, Again, you don't need to go out and spend all the money and do this whole overhaul of now you're just as professional as Apple or whatever. But you do need to have a process so that people think of you very quickly when they hear about when someone else brings something up and they know to refer you. Because
Yeah.
then they should be able to articulate as well what that customer service looks like. That's typically when people are referring out, they're not just like, oh yeah, I've got this great person who can help you with that. They don't just speak to what you have, they speak to what you do.
Mhm.
Right? Oh, here's why I'm referring them to you, because oh, they're going to make it so easy for you. They streamline everything. They'll, they respond really quickly via email. Those are the things. Those are often the things that I hear as well when people refer to me. Oh, you're efficient. You answer email, whatever, right? And it's you'd be surprised how even just little as that is
Mhm.
going being responsive is a good part of your branding. But
So, oh man, you just read my mind. I don't need to say much more than that. I was gonna look, my goodness. Yes, answering emails, answering the phone, responding to people on social media, right? Today for me is going to be a real challenge, right? Today is my Earth Day. It's my anniversary. It's my birthday. And I looked on LinkedIn today and I was like, oh my God. But you know what? I'm going to take time and I'm going to respond to every single person. I promise you.
mhm.
And I do that for a reason. And you just can't underestimate, once again, the little things that separate you from your competition, right? That's going to be extreme, but you got to be responsive. When someone calls and they leave, especially they leave a voicemail, you got to get back with them, right? If someone text messages you, I don't like the text message thing so much because people feel like because they sent you a message, you got to respond right away. It's like, I do things called eat. Sometimes I'm in the bathroom doing a number two, can't respond immediately, but you still got to make it your business to respond to people, right? That's
Mhm.
also part of the deal. I'm thinking about what happens when you acquire your first happy customer, whether that be a family, whether that be a friend. I think in the beginning, sometimes because the people are our family and friends, supporters, we don't we don't treat that process seriously, right?
Right.
But there's some things that you can do when you first take on clients. I'm a huge fan of asking individuals to write testimonies, right? And I purposely will send testimonies to individuals. I will send letters. I will send statements based on information or feedback I receive back to individuals. And I will say, look, do you mind, in your own words, do it electronically. So write it out, post it on my LinkedIn page. I have a website, post a comment there. Or, for individuals, especially if you're in, let's say, residential refurbishment, right? Let's say you are a dressmaker. Let's say you are offering some type of service where people can literally see the smile and happiness on people's faces, right? A before and after, right? You meeting the person, you walk into the house, it looks like something out of a Jason, Freddy Krueger, whatever movie. And then a week later, you've worked on it and their smiling faces standing in the middle of their living room, right? Things like that don't require a lot of money, don't
Mhm.
require a lot of expertise. Trust me, I am a dinosaur when it comes to social media and posting and whatnot. But so I think about it from the standpoint of individuals who are just starting out, who might not have $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 budgets, right? It's just you. And these are some real simple things you can do, right? Um, Same thing if you are baking a cake, or same thing if you are, I can think so many applications. If you're a graphic designer, letting people see different parts of your process when you're putting together this masterpiece, this work of art for someone. What does your process look like? If you're a musician, what are you doing before you begin to perform? What's going on during the performance? How do you de-escalate? Or what are your habits afterwards, right? These things are interesting to people, right?
Yeah.
Because
And
once again, go ahead.
well, they also, when you think about, a big part of branding is what are your features, what are your benefits, what makes you stand out. These are included in that. It's not
Yes.
just product features or service features. It's process features.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that should be include, what makes me stand out may not be what you think obviously for a product or service, right? It's what makes me stand out is me. So what makes me different?
Yeah, I mean, some questions I think when you're in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
you should ask yourself, number one is, where do you see your business 10 years from now? Right? I always start there. 20 years out is too far. Some people ain't been on the earth 20 years thinking about starting a business, right?
Right.
But 10 years from now, what do you want your business to look like? Right? Quite frankly, how do you want to be living? What do you want to be doing with your time? What do you want your lifestyle to look like? I mean, answer these questions to yourself. Then look out 3 years, right? And ask yourself, okay, 10 years, what my business will look like. 3 years, you're 1/4 of the way there. How do you know whether or not you've made progress? What are the milestones? You know, how many clients do you have? Who are your clients? That's an important question. Who are your clients, right? When you talk about branding, identifying who they are, look, you got to go where the eyeballs are at. You got to know your client demographic. You got to know where they're spending their time, whether it be online or offline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? How old are they? Or do they have children? Do they not have children? Are they in college? Are they in their golden years? I mean, who is your ideal client? Who's the person that is looking for your solution, product, or service? Who's the person is ready to make a decision in terms of your product and service, right? They're a decision maker. And who's the person that has a disposable income, right? Whether your product costs $2 or if it costs $2,000. You know, asking yourself these questions are important when you think about branding and marketing, because that will definitely impact how you should look, how you, or you know, Rochelle, I hear you say how you should show up, right?
Yeah.
You should ask yourself what, you know, a question we ask oftentimes on Next Op Social towards the tail end is, what is your superpower?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
what is your superpower, right? Because that's part of your branding, right? When we talk about what makes you different, that's a great way to answer that question. If you're kind of perplexed by what do we mean by that? What is your superpower? What makes you special? What is that thing that you can do better than anyone else? Or what is that thing you're going to focus on better than anyone else? Right? You know, for me, when I think about personally, something I try to separate myself from the pack with is, look, when I meet with people, I give them 100%. Right? I know there are people who work in the B2B space and they try to charge everyone for everything, right? Just because they told someone LLC is limited liability corporation, I need $5 for that. You know what I mean by that. There's those people that are out there.
Yes.
I don't mind giving away information. I know that's why people contact me. He's a
Mm-hmm.
smart person. He'll give you the right information. He won't charge you for it, right? Because at the end of the day, for me, I understand that it's not about the information itself. Ideals are great, but the value's in the execution.
Right.
Right. But that's something I pride myself on. I want people to know after they're done conversing with me, they have a plan of action, that I'm not some guy that has read a book and watched a YouTube video and I'm just spouting. You know, I want to give people actionable content, things they can apply right away. So when we have that next conversation, we talk about execution. I've already built the credibility and the trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I ride hard on. What's yours, right? Regardless of what product or service that you're offering. If it's clothing, is it comfortable? You know, do you use like some type of linen that feels like silk on people's skin? That could be something you double down on. That's a reason why they acquire your service or product, right? What's that superpower for you?
I think a few other questions that we typically ask our guests when they're on here as well, that helps indirectly, whether people realize it or not, through these discussions. When we ask things like, what are things about your industry that you wish, that are misconceptions, right? That you wish people knew, right? Answering that question also helps you understand why you're in what you do. If you've forgotten to a certain extent, because typically those misconceptions are why you started what you did, to make something easier, better, faster, whatever, right? So that's something, another question to ask. And then on top of the superpower one, we always ask, what is, the one thing you want to leave people with, what's the one piece of advice, right? But you could even take that question as, what is, if you only had 1 minute, right? Not even just an elevator pitch. Like, let's move away from like your mission statement, whatever. If you only had 1 minute to tell people something so vitally important about what you do so that they knew that you were the person or you were the business that they needed to go to for whatever that reason is, what would you say? Right? So I think that's much stronger than just like, oh, we're a business who believes in blah blah blah. Like no, like bring it home really, really honestly. Um, if you are, forced to sum it up into one thing, right? That's going to help you get really clear around that too. And if you watch our past interviews, our guests talk about a lot of things, but there's themes around everything they talk about. And
Yes.
we can, there's a reason why we're able to put a title and a summary on those discussions because their vision, their missions, their whys are very strong. And it resonates no matter which way we come at that question. They can answer it in different ways, but it still solidifies in those same ideas.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that because once again, I think this is so important when you're once again in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
Thinking about your branding process and thinking about what your brand's going to be.
Or even if
And
you're
you
not in the
said something.
beginning, if you're in the rebranding process, right? If you're like,
Yes.
my brand isn't
Yes.
strong enough, I never really took enough time to
Mhm.
to do this, or this doesn't feel like it resonates anymore. So beginning or rebranding. So I think that, yeah, both
Yeah.
stages.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Every entrepreneur that we've interviewed so far shows up. And
Mm-hmm.
we say show up, I mean, they bring that energy. You know exactly what they are about, what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, where they see themselves and how they see themselves, and the problem or solution that they're solving. They've been passionate. Like some of our interviews have been intense.
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and oftentimes I'm on LinkedIn in particular, I'll be having back and forth with entrepreneurs and I'll see some of the content. And I'll tell you, there's a phrase that just drives me up the wall when I see it. When someone says, I'm doing this little business or I'm doing this little thing. And I literally just want to jump through the screen, sit down across the table from them and says, in little no, look, if you're not enthusiastic or passionate about that thing that you're doing, no one else is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't be on 10 about the service or product or the way in which you've chosen to express your talent and skills, if you're not on 10 about that, no one else is going to be excited about that either. That's part of your branding too, as well, right? How you show up, not just in terms, like you said, your digital artifacts or even your elevator pitch or any verbiage you might have out there on LinkedIn or on your website or any recordings you make. You have to bring that energy. You have to bring that passion, right? Part of standing out is this is what I believe. Most people are walking around and they're not necessarily happy with their lives, especially right now during the pandemic. People
Mm-hmm.
are looking for things to believe in. People are looking for things to get excited about. People are looking for truth. People are looking for connection. People are looking for things that make them feel like they're just not out isolating the world, going through their ish and whatever that may be, right? When I think about branding, when I think about showing up, it's your responsibility to be almost like a defibrillator, right? Shock them, wake them up, right? That's part of your process too. That's part of your deal. When you're interacting with people, when you're talking, I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, I just want to be low key. I want to play to the back. Yeah, you can do that later on. But in the beginning, when it's just you, especially, or if you're a micro business owner, or if you're a small business owner, let's say with 10 employees or less, no, your energy needs to be palpable,
Yeah.
right? People need to know that you believe in the service and product that you're providing. And here's the thing, when you have that type of belief, when you are passionate about what it is that you're doing, you'll find the energy to do all the little things that we're talking about right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know individuals, when they see the title of this, they're going to think that we're going to be talking about some real high macro level. We can go there. I got 4 marketing books sitting right here in front of me right now. We could go there. But for me, I thought this would be valuable to talk about it on that base level, right? The things that you can control, the things that are immediately accessible, the things that are immediately affordable, the things that don't require that you necessarily go out, at least at the beginning, and pay $2,000 and $3,000 for expertise and things that don't, quite frankly, require. There's some processes when you talk about branding and marketing where it takes time, right?
Yeah.
It may take you 6 months, it may take you a year for a particular strategy or tactic to gain traction. But what are the things you can do right now, especially launching or relaunching, to immediately get people's attention and get them engaged in what it is you're doing, right? And how you're showing up in terms of your passion, how you talk about what you do, that stuff matters. It really does.
Yeah. I think one area to take a look at, whether you have a website, whether you've got a bio somewhere, whether you on like a link, just social media pages or whatever, go look at that your about page, your bio. What does that look like and sound like? If it's pretty blah, generic, or all over the place, there's a reason why you're hitting a wall right now. It's not easy. It's not necessarily easy to write those things. Can take work, but that is something absolutely that if you put the time in to take that work or do that work, a lot of this other stuff becomes clear, right? Yes, it's great when you have this opportunity to outsource these elements to get things done professionally and faster. But kind of like I said in the beginning, none of that's going to work to the level that you want it to work. There's no point in even spending that money unless this first stuff is clear, unless you know who you're trying to target, unless you know why you're trying to target them, unless you know what makes you stand out. And there's no one else that can help there. I won't say there's no one else. Sometimes just having this discussion with other people helps you become more clear, right? Sometimes having this discussion either with other designer professionals, marketing professionals can help you get to those clearer ideas. But you do have to have that solidified to make any of those dollars that you use down the line worthwhile. It's going to be a waste of money.
Another way that I think about it too as well is, and I'm putting on my sales hat, right? I'll have individuals who will call me out of nowhere and ask me to help them sell their product or service, or help them figure out a way to sell it to people they want to approach. And the question I ask them is, look, if I'm sitting down across the table from you and I'm going to take a sales job with you, I need to know your value prop, right? I have to have something to sell, right? What is it? Once again, and I know some of this sounds redundant, but we're coming at it from 3 or 4 different angles, because the conversation kind of is one and the same. What's your value prop, right? If I'm going to sell your product or service, why does it make it special? Another question that I'll ask entrepreneurs and business owners, particularly if they're a micro business owner or a smaller business, is I'll ask, what motivated you to start the business in the first place, right? Why did you start it? I remember I asked a question of an entrepreneur not too long ago that asked me to help them market something of theirs. And I asked them, talk to me a little bit about you. What is that thing that you can recall from the time you were a child that made you laugh, that made you giggle, that brought you glee and brought you happiness? What is that thing, right? And how's that related to your business? I'll ask an entrepreneur in a heartbeat, what is the thing that has made you mad? From the time as far back, it makes you so angry that you start churning in your seat and you want to get up and hit somebody in the face. What is that thing that just brings like your passions to the forefront, that literally it starts coming out your eyes and ears, where people will look at you and notice something emotional is going on with you? What are those things? Bring those things to the forefront and find a way to channel those energies into your business, right? For me, I'm very passionate about a lack of knowledge, right? And I'm just giving this as an example, right? For me, I think about particularly the African-American community in Detroit, right? And I think about how oftentimes a lot of these business owners fail for a lack of knowledge. They fail for a lack of information, right? It's just certain things they don't know. I've sat down with business owners who don't know the difference between a business DDA account that's structured as an and or account. They don't know, right? I cannot tell you how many business owners I've talked to over the last 2 weeks where they went to the state of Michigan, they paid to get the CID number with the state of Michigan for the LLC, and then they went downtown and paid the county for a DBA, and they think their LLC is set up, right? I mean, I see this type of stuff all the time. Individuals who don't understand, quite frankly, the difference between a LLC and an S corp. And I sit down and talk to them, and I find out somebody charged them for $3,000 that information and knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. When it's something I know I can pull up my computer and in 4 or in probably 3 paragraphs explain the exact same thing, right? These things, like ignorance being trafficked or ignorance being preyed upon, makes me mad. It always has. It's always angered me to my core. And it's why I'm so passionate and so thorough when I first meet individuals, right? I want to give them as much as I have to give. What is that thing that motivates you in the exact same way? And how do you channel that into your business, right? I'm trying to think of several other questions, but I'm gonna press pause for a moment.
Well, I think a question, like when people come to me, right? I think from my perspective, I get a lot of people that'll be like, I have this idea, or I'm going to do this course, or I'm going to put this together. I know how to do it. I know what's going to be in it. I know how to teach people, or I know how to, deliver on this, but I have no idea on how to get people interested. I don't know how they're coming to me because they're like, or I already have this, it's already here and no one's buying it. Mm-hmm. Right. And they're coming to me from the perspective of like, something's wrong, right? They know something's wrong, but they typically think something's wrong in the sense of I'm not on the right social media. I'm not posting enough. You know, my brand, my business isn't big enough. I don't have a big enough audience yet. And that's, 9 times out of 10, that has nothing to do with it. Right. They don't realize that until a lot of the work that I do with people is like, okay, the reason why nobody's buying your thing is not because you don't have millions of people following you, is not because you're not on social media every hour of the day. It's because when the people who have interacted with what you have to say don't see any value in that. They don't see any urgency in that. They don't see themselves in that. Right? So now we need to take a step back and ask, why? What are you saying? What are you even posting out there? Are you even speaking to that at all? And typically that's where the hole is as well. If you're in a position where you're like, listen, I know how to do what I know how to do. I just don't know how to bring people in to get interested in it. There are a lot of small businesses, very, very tiny small businesses that are doing really, really well from the simple fact that they know how to articulate to the right people the value. You don't need to attract everyone. Your target audience is not everyone. In fact, I would argue that the more narrow you are right now, especially in the beginning, the better it will be. It's easier to talk to a smaller group of people than it is this whole, like, okay, even your example of your client. Is it everyone that goes to church? Is it all women that go to church? Or how can you even narrow that down even more, right? Because over time, that niche can grow and it will do that organically and it can be a bigger group of people and that's fine. But get really specific right now because the words that the way that you convey what you do and how you do it is going to resonate so hard. Like, we have these ideations of, I want more businesses. I need more customers. I need more and more and more. But what's happening is, like today, if today you just got one more and tomorrow you got one more, by the end of the month, you've had 30 more. You don't need 10 today. You don't need 100 today. If you had 30, if you had one every day by the end of the month, that would in itself transform your lives. So it's very, very, so 30 people who get it are going to speak to 30 more people who get it. And it's going to compound a lot faster. this is why like a lot of people, especially, they'll be like, oh, I'm building up, my platforms and my channels or whatever. And, I only have like 200 followers or 300 followers or 500 followers or even 100 followers. And I need more. I need more people to see it. But then I break down and go, what if all 200 of those people were really engaged and bought from you? Would that change your, like, what if 200 people were like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like stopping to think about that of like, well, yeah, that would be huge. Right. It's not about just trying to chase everybody and grab all these numbers and build up this awareness from larger, like, you don't want that. You really don't. You want that to grow organically over time so that you can maintain that and sustain that properly. But you need like 10, this month. You need 30 this month, not day, to get it really, 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 really clear. So I think that's just super. Again, like there's 8,000 different ways to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're hitting this wall of like, I'm not making any sales, I'm not bringing in new people. And I think it's because I don't do this, that, or the other thing right on email, marketing, website, social media. That's just usually not it. There are people
Mm-hmm.
who are doing all that sloppy all day and they're doing just fine.
Yep. Yeah, I'm one of them, right?
Well, I think about like
Yeah.
there's a local pizzeria. They're like an Italian bakery, right? That's
Yes.
over here. And I know them well and like personally, and I've watched their social media over time, and I have pitched them several times, be like, please let me just fix this. It's not good, right? It's sloppy, right? And I know this could be better. But they have consistently put out their message in their way. It's not super polished, right? But they've put it out consistently, their message their way, to the point where nobody cares that it's not polished. Nobody cares, and that people think of them faster because they have shown up. They know who their people are. They know this is how it needs. That's it, right? And yeah, in terms of a marketing perspective, they're not like, I don't. If I'm just looking at it and I didn't know them, and they were like, this isn't working, I could easily point out where it's not working, but it is working.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're very clear on their vision and what they do.
WWIFM. What's in it for me? Right? You said something that caught my attention earlier where you have individuals who say, well, I know how to do this. This is how I want to do it. It's not about you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's not about you. I remember a YouTube video I watched, maybe it feels like maybe 4 years ago. And it was one of Gary V's rants, right? Where he's talking about photographers and people who were upset when Instagram came out, predicted Instagram would fail because the pictures wouldn't be as sharp as a professional could provide, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And individuals who were saying that failed to realize it wasn't about what they thought was of value. It's about what the public thought was of value. People like the idea of going to a wedding and just pulling out their phone and becoming a photographer.
Right.
People like the ideal of doing that for their birthdays or when they take a vacation somewhere and they're walking up and down the beach or something like that. They wanted to be able to capture those special moments without having to pay someone to be stepping on the back of their heels, right? It's not about oftentimes it's not about what you believe is valuable. You got to beta test and engage the people that you are taking aim at and ask them what's most important to them, right? The other thing you said that really caught my attention too was this ideal of going after volume. Like, I got to have 100,000 people. I need to have 300,000, or, you hear some of these ridiculous numbers that are out there where I feel like I'm not getting traction in the marketplace. It's like I have 1 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the question I would pose to individuals is, would you rather have 300 just rabid fans of yours, and that's all you have, but they're rabid, they love you?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather have 100,000 people where every now and again they just do a couple likes, do a couple shares, and that's pretty much the extent of the engagement, right?
Yeah.
The thinking is wrong. My thinking is, when it comes to social media in particular, is my goal is to create rabid fans. The people who check for me, I want them to check for me, right? I'm making content for them. The people who love the perspectives, information, and insights and what I do. You should be doing everyone should be doing the exact same thing. Who are your rabid fans? Who are the people who just love you and will tell their mama, their dad, their uncle, their aunts, their niece, their nephews? They can be randomly in the jewelry store, in the bank, or in the grocery store and just randomly start talking about what is you doing. Who are those people? How do you create that type of interaction? That's what you take aim at. Because here's the thing: if you're doing that, you're going to get to your 50 or 100 or 300,000 followers anyway.
Right.
You are, right?
Right.
What you don't want is what I would refer to as empty calories, right?
Yeah.
Empty calories.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, don't get caught up in, so to speak, the numbers. The numbers will come. Get caught up in creating that base of individuals who are just as passionate and just as excited about the thing that you're doing as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those other things will fall into place. And more importantly, people who are engaging you will actually be patronizing you and telling people about you, right? So I thought about that too when you were talking about the ideal of, how individuals will spend this money and time ideating about how to get to $100,000, 100,000 followers as quickly as possible. I mean, I'm seeing that all day long on Instagram, right? Where people ended up playing whatever games they were playing, doing whatever tricks they were doing to get to those followers, and their business is dead in the water, right? I see the same thing all the time, quite frankly, on LinkedIn. I know some of the games people are playing to get their viewership up, right? Individuals who are actually viewing their content, but I also pay close attention to, are people commenting?
Right.
And are the comments that individuals are making, are these the type of comments that lend itself to actually being able to do business with these people? Right? That's what you're really looking for at the end of the day. Something else that I would encourage people to consider too is, look, if I see a response to a business owner's content, the question I ask myself is, I wonder, is that business owner actually going to literally reach out to that person? Are they going to directly message them? Are they going to directly email them? Are they going to try to establish contact with them? Right? If you really want to grow your brand online, you have to respect the one or two people who are checking for you before you can expect to get 2 to 3 to 500 to 1,000 more who will, right? You got to respect those who are checking for you right then and there. And it's something that, and once again, this is all part of the branding. Like, branding is how people, there's the maxim out there: people do business with folks whom they like, know, and trust. That's what you really want to do. You want to get people to like, know, and trust you, right? And to feel like you're a person and your business has a heartbeat. It's not just some type of bot.
Yeah. I think let's do this. Let's answer our own question. What's the one important thing we want people to take away? I think mine would be, or one action step, right? If you're going to take away, you're going to take away a lot of things from this chat. But if the one action step I want you to take, if you're listening to this and you're like still overwhelmed on where to start, you shouldn't be. We gave you a lot, but if you need one, go back through. I don't care if you've only had 5 customers or 50 or 500. Go back and identify the customers, whether you're a product-based business or a service-based business, where from start to finish, that process went really well, or you really enjoyed it, or it went, or they were really happy with it, right? Go identify who those are, and now go find the similarities between those people, or reach out to those individual people and take some time to talk to them further, to dive into why did this go so well, right? If it's not obvious enough to you, those conversations alone are what's going to help you solidify the very beginning of who to target, how to target them, how to speak to them. Just doing that exercise alone is going to transform your branding process.
I like it. Yeah. A question that I would encourage people to ask themselves, I want them to take back from this, is, what's your promise? What is your promise? Right? I kind of like Jimmy John's because of their promise, right? The little funny commercials that get there in a couple of moments and less, right? That's their promise.
Yeah.
I remember what helped Little Caesars blow up, right? was, what was it? It was like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think what it was a 10-minute promise, right? What's your promise? And you can build a brand and, quite frankly, a marketing strategy. You can build an operation strategy. Thought I'd turn this off. You can build an operation strategy around that question alone. What's your promise to people? And if you can define that, you can do a lot with it. I mean, you can really launch a fantastic business with that.
Yep. All right. Well, Next Up Social family, this is one to think through. Take those two action steps away. Hopefully you wrote them down. If not, you can rewind and listen again. But there's a lot of different ways that we approach this this topic that hopefully one of them resonated with you to make sense in how you can tackle your brand, tackle your branding, and become more successful and memorable. If you have someone else, that a business colleague or other entrepreneur that you know that is struggling with this right now, I would argue that at different times we go through our phases where we do struggle with this. So share this one, or share your thoughts and your comments. We'd love to hear from you. And other than that, we will talk to you soon.